Mr. President, last year, you and I and a number of us went out to the folks in our great states, and we promised that if we were elected into a majority, that we would do everything that we could to repeal and replace Obamacare. The process that the American people are going to witness over the next 24 hours is our fulfillment of that promise. It'll take 51 votes to send a bill to the president's desk that repeals the most egregious provisions of Obamacare. Once we do that, we can begin to start about a process of addressing the legitimate health care problems instead of an option that's made the problem worse. It's a system that will control your cost and put patients first. It's a system that puts your choice first. It's a system that puts quality ahead of partisan politics. This is an open process that we'll go through over the next day. It's the way it should be. And that means it will require some tough votes. Many of my friends on the right may not particularly like or enjoy the amendments that will be offered and then voted on, but I, for one, when confronted with a vote that I may otherwise like to support, if I feel like it prevents us to move forward and be successful with sending this bill to the president's desk, then I'm prepared to make those tough votes to be absolutely certain that we fulfill that fundamental promise of repealing Obamacare. However, in the end, this is about doing everything we can to keep our promise to the American people. While we in Congress will put our conscience over politics, if we do, the president seems to put politics over what I believe he and many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle know is a failed policy. This is exactly the underlying failure of Obamacare. It was a never-ending list of promises and assurances that have not and never will be realized. We all remember the same promise we heard over and over again from the president. If you like your health care, you can keep it. If you like your doctors, you can keep them. That has absolutely not happened in my great state of North Carolina. I would dare say it hasn't happened across the nation. Millions of Americans were kicked off their plans and given a set of alternatives that were drastically more expensive. They were told they could no longer see the doctors they'd visited and trusted for years. In North Carolina alone, we had over 470,000 cancellation notices. Now, when they promised that if you liked your health care, you could keep it, there was a little asterisk there. And the asterisk was, you can keep it if the federal government determines that a policy you're satisfied with, they're satisfied with. That's how they say they kept their promise. But it was an empty promise, and they haven't kept it. We also remember the president's promises to make health care more affordable, boasting that Obamacare would reduce premiums by $2,500. That hasn't happened either. In North Carolina, during the first full year of the exchange rollout, premium prices increased and outpaced the increases in wages and inflation. The average home was spending more on health care and getting less in their paycheck. The premium prices in the individual insurance market increased by 147%. 147%. This leads to the problem of people having insurance they can't afford to use because they can't afford their deductible or their copay. It's created a real-life horror stories of families struggling to make the choice between paying for their health care and paying to keep food on their table. Last month, I received a letter from a North Carolina couple nearing retirement who are lifelong small business owners. They wrote, these are their words, "Last year, our premiums for bare bones policy was nearly $1,000 a month. It is a terrible policy, but nothing else was available within our budget. We received the 2016 rate late last Friday. The premium is going up 40%. So now that $1,000 a month policy will cost us $1,400 a month with a higher deductible. For the first time in my adult life," this constituent says, "we may have to forego having health insurance and take our chances." I received another letter from another North Carolinian. He wrote, "I'm a self-employed person, barely able to make ends meet. My wife works 60 hours a week. We might take home close to $40,000 a year. We've done our best to make it on our own with no government assistance. Back in 2008, the company I worked for shut down. Since then, we have gone through all of our life savings just to make ends meet. When I first started buying our health insurance in 2008, our premiums were around $600, and for me and my 2 daughters. But I just received our letter and found out that our new premium will jump to $1,700 a month. These stories are heartbreaking, and they're not unique to North Carolina. I know each and every senator, whether they support Obamacare or want to repeal it, have received similar stories from constituents chronicling how Obamacare has caused them immeasurable financial and emotional hardship and no better access to affordable health care. I can tell you that with nearly every one of these letters and calls to my office that I've received, my constituents also expressed their desire for Congress to vote for repeal of the Obamacare law. It's caused so much pain, it hasn't solved any problems. And this is exactly what the Senate's going to do tomorrow. We're going to keep our word, something that I think sometimes citizens feel like we just don't do enough up here in this chamber. We're going to send a bill to the President's desk that repeals the most egregious portions of Obamacare. And keep in mind, many of the bad things that will occur with Obamacare are not even in place today. If you don't like it now, I guarantee you will not like it next year, even more so. But again, I want to get back to the process for a minute. This process that we're going through is one of the unique instances where we can pass a bill and send it to the President's desk with 51 votes. Normally it takes 60. In order for us to be able to pass it with 51 votes, it's going to require us to be very strict in terms of what this bill may or may not have in it. There are going to be games played tomorrow. There are going to be amendments put out there that members know would prevent us from being able to send this bill to the President's desk. I, for one, am going to stand with the leadership, who I appreciate having the courage to bring this bill forward and make sure that we take votes that send this bill, a fulfillment of my promise to the citizens of North Carolina, to the President's desk. And to those who vote against it, Americans, take notice, because they are not listening to you. They are not reading the letters and hearing the stories that I hear every single day, and they should be held accountable when they're next up for re-election. So, Mr. President, thank you for your time today, and I yield the floor.